Joining us now is Saideman, Patterson Chair in International Affairs at Carleton University. Thanks for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
Are you surprised at how fast the Taliban is moving? The U.S. still has people on the ground.
I'm not that surprised. I mean, if you looked at things in 2011, 2014, you might have expected this to happen sooner. That counterinsurgency is very difficult to work. And while we've been training these people for years, the question is, do they support the government? And that's really been a problem. The Taliban have had a lot of support from Pakistan and from Iran. And so it's been a really challenging fight. And remember, back in 2001, the Taliban collapsed very quickly when people decided that that was no longer a winning bet. And so the question now is how long are people keep on betting on the government of Afghanistan if they see that the Taliban is inevitable?
So where are Afghan forces? As you mentioned, they've been trained for years. Where are they, and will they be able to hold major cities?
Well, it really depends on what they think is going to happen. Any military is as good as their belief in the will to fight. If they think that they can fight, they will continue to fight. If they think that their brothers in arms will not fight, then they'll stop fighting. And that's the real thing. They've been trained, but a lot of the training wasn't necessarily aimed at counterinsurgency. A lot of the training was aimed at imitating what the West does. But we've had a lot of effort to train people, but there's been a lot of attrition. The Afghan security forces have paid a heavy price the past several years. As the West, ramped down, they took more of a brunt of the attacks, and so they've been paying a very high price in terms of killed in action, wounded over the past 5 years or so. And so the question then is how long can they hold out, and we really don't know. It may happen quickly, it may happen slowly. It's foolish to predict right now how quickly this will take place.
You mentioned that they were trained in the ways of the West instead of dealing with insurgency. What is the difference in that training?
Well, the training that we tend to do is the training that we're familiar with for our own soldiers, which is conventional military operations. What these folks needed to do was be trained in how to protect villages, how to be reliable from town to town, and that's really hard to do. And it's a long-term effort. And we trained a lot of people in just how to become barely literate in order to be able to follow commands. And there needs to be much more than that.
Do they have the numbers to hold off the push of the Taliban? Just whether or not the sentiment is there, do they have the numbers to do it?
Well, it's never been a matter of numbers, because it's a matter of who is the Taliban, where are they at, when are they going to attack? And the Taliban can choose to attack the time and places they're choosing. And if the locals aren't going to identify them because they're intimidated by the Taliban, if the locals don't have faith in the government because the government has been corrupt and incompetent, then the army, the Afghan army, is not going to have the help it needs to be discriminate in the use of force, which is to only hit the Taliban. The Taliban will melt away and pretend that they're civilians when need be. And so it's not a numbers game, it's a political situation. And that's what we have to get our heads around, is that the politics of this have been very difficult. And it's just not a matter of counting who's wearing green and who's not wearing green.
I also want to ask you about people being displaced, because that's sort of the secondary problem here. A lot of people are now moving into Kabul hoping that that stands.
This is not the first time that Afghanistan's been through this, that people will flee the violence. And the big question for the international community is what they're going to do to step up about that. We can't expect the United States or the UN or anybody else to send troops in to refight this war. But what we can do is expect people to provide refuge. And so as we will probably see Afghans flee to Pakistan, Iran, other neighboring countries, the ones who've already fled are not going to be coming back anytime too soon. And so the question then becomes, how do we take care of them? And so the debate in Canada has been how to take care of the people who interpreted for us and helped us out. But the problem is bigger than that, because we shouldn't just be helping the people who helped us. We should be helping the other people who are going to be victims of Taliban violence.
Yeah, the question is, how do we go about doing that? Saideman, appreciate you weighing in on this. Thank you for your time tonight.
No problem.